Have you ever considered making your own clothes? Maybe you already do. Maybe you've dabbled a little bit. Today I'm sharing all the big things that making my own wardrobe has taught me. Hi, I'm Jen. Welcome to Shirty Deeds. I learnt to sew when I was a kid and sewed various things on and off since then. But about 5 years ago, I took it back up in a really big way. Soon got hooked. And before I knew it, I was making instead of buying most of the clothing that I needed. About 2 years ago, I also took up knitting, which just added to my skill set and allowed me to make even more of the things I need. I'm probably at about 80 to 90% handmade with my regular everyday wardrobe now. I would love that to be higher, but I don't think that's realistic for most people, and it's certainly not realistic for me to make every single thing. But I've learnt lots along the way, and I'd like to share today all the big things that I learnt that I didn't necessarily think were coming. For the first time ever, when I made my own clothes, I felt liberated from the horrors of shopping and not being able to find the things that I wanted. I felt liberated from the whims of fashion and the high street dictating to us what we ought to be wearing. And I felt somewhat liberated from concerns about my body and how it wouldn't fit into the clothes that I was being sold. Making my own clothes solved so many of these problems. Yes, it takes lots of time and effort, and it still costs money, but I can make things to fit my actual body size and measurements. I realised that the sizes in the shops were largely arbitrary. We all know that feeling when we go into different shops, and the medium or the large doesn't fit the same as in a different shop. It almost feels like it's designed that way to keep us buying more and more. When you make your own clothes, you get used to adjusting things for yourself to fit you properly. It frees you from feeling like your body is the problem. It makes you realise that it's the clothes not fitting that are the problem. As I've got older, I can't seem to find clothes that suit what I want to wear at my age and for my life. Everything seemed too young or too old. I just couldn't find what I wanted. Now I can make the things that I want. Being creative and making things is often a really mindful, relaxing activity. It can have its moments where something goes wrong, it can feel a bit stressful, and you don't want to mess up. But for the most part, I and many others find it incredibly relaxing, and it's also helped me to cope with a long-term health condition I have that often stops me from doing more active pursuits. So I can feel productive and create lovely things sat on my sofa. It's one of the reasons I took up knitting as well as sewing. I can sit on the couch. If it's a day that I can't walk well, I can still enjoy my hobby. When I started making clothes, I got an enormous sense of achievement and accomplishment, and I still do every single time I finish a project. There is nothing quite like that "thanks, I made it" feeling when someone compliments you on what you're wearing. That will never get old. I also think as humans, we are wired to create and make things. We've been doing it for millennia. I don't think we'll ever stop. Making things with your hands is so satisfying, so good for your well-being and sense of empowerment that I really think it can't be beaten. There is a common misconception that making your own clothes must be incredibly cheap. It can be if you perhaps used thrifted fabrics or you upcycle things that you have found or been given. All of those things can make it incredibly cheap. But also making your own clothes and all the fabrics, yarns and tools involved in that can be incredibly expensive. And the shopping for clothes can easily be replaced for shopping for those items to make your clothes with. But I do think if we compare like for like, if you were going to pay somebody else to make you bespoke garments that fit you really nicely in exactly the colours, styles, prints, patterns, everything that you wanted, you would pay a hell of a lot more than if you make it yourself. So comparing bespoke, designer, beautiful items with your own that you can learn to make just as nicely in that way, yes, it can be cheaper. I think lots of people, when they start out making their own clothes, feel like perhaps it's not as creative as they thought it might be. They might see lots of people online and on social media sharing these incredibly creative looking projects with all sorts of beautiful fabrics, and they're mixing fabrics together and they're designing and drafting their own patterns, and it all seems quite unattainable. But don't forget that even just matching up a pattern and a fabric is creative in itself. You're creating something that probably no one else has, a combination that is unique to your process. And you're exercising those creative muscles so that over time, as you gain more skills to perhaps start doing those more complicated things, you then have worked that creativity and nurtured it. When I started learning to make my own clothes, and let's face it, we're all still learning, I still learn new things and new techniques all the time, I very quickly realised the value of that clothing. Let's face it, every single item of clothing we buy, no matter where it's come from, a human has made those. They might have industrial machines and processes, they might work on an incredibly quick production line, but there are human hands all over those clothes that you buy in the shops. And when I started making them myself and I realised the time and skill involved, it made me appreciate them all the more. I now have fewer clothes than I used to, but they're well made. They last a long time. I intend for them to last a long time. I try to make things that aren't too trend-led so that they can stay in my wardrobe for a long time and I'll continue to love wearing them. I can't believe how disposable I viewed clothing as until I started making them myself. And I'm so grateful for that, and I'm so proud to have developed the skills to be able to do that for myself. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope that if you're embarking on a journey to learn how to sew or knit or make anything for yourself at all, that these things that I've learned give you a bit of food for thought and a big appreciation for what is possible and what you can learn along the way. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm still new around here and I would really appreciate if you stuck around. And of course, leave a comment if you've got any questions at all. I'll see you next time.